Welcome back to the Mr. Nowak's Classroom Virtually Irrelevant podcast. We're recording this on a Thursday in beautiful downtown Renfrew. Joining us today, RCI alumni, RCI parent of the past, I suppose, Rotarian, business owner of smilinghost.com, Kent Tubman. Kent, how are you today?
I'm great, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're here to talk about a very exciting project in our community. And if you've driven by RVH, you've seen the cranes. Can you tell us what's going on? What are these cranes doing?
There's lots happening at RVH right now. We're going through a $35 million expansion. A big part of it is the expansion of the dialysis unit. It's going to go from 14 stations to 20 stations, which is a really big deal. And in addition to that expansion will be renovation of the rest of the hospital over the next 5 to 7 years. So dialysis is going to go from a relatively small space to a very large space to accommodate more patients, but also to provide better infection control, better care for the patients, better housekeeping, more efficient use of the space. And then into dialysis goes the oncology department, which is also in a very cramped quarters. So they're going to be able to expand, do more treatments in a year, take care of their patients in a better way. So as each area opens up, there'll be renovations occurring and new programs, and some additional staff will come on board as well. So pretty big deal over the next few years.
And a big deal because you don't see this in small town hospitals.
You're right. Yeah. The level of expertise that's going to be at RVH when this is over is really high for a small rural hospital. And in fact, this expansion is an exception in Ontario. Many hospitals are being turned down by the government for their expansion plans, but because RVH had such a great plan and was fiscally ready for this expansion, they were able to approve it, and the government's kicking in $10 million to this program.
Which is just going to be so beneficial, not only for patient care in the community, and we're going to get to that in a second, but through our interaction as friends, as teacher, parent, you've informed me and educated me about the world-class facility that we already have in the Renfrew Victoria Hospital. Can you talk about, and this is an opportunity to brag about what we have even before the expansion is happening. Mm-hmm. Why is RVH known throughout not only the province, the country, but it's internationally recognized? This is your opportunity to brag.
There's lots of reasons to brag about RVH and what we have there, and the tremendous staff is probably the biggest part of it. They care so much about the patients, and they give 120% every day, and they are always learning, so that while they're really good at what they did yesterday, they're learning about things that they need to worry about next month, next year. So their skill levels are going up all the time, and they're on the cutting edge of what's happening. A good example is the oncology unit, where we are a satellite of the Ottawa Hospital, the Cancer Care Center in Ottawa, and we are classed as a Class 4 oncology unit, which means that they can deliver any level of chemotherapy available except if people are on clinical trials. So that any kind of chemo that you can get in a major center like Ottawa or Toronto, you can get in Renfrew if that's what you need as a patient. So it's pretty cool, and that's just one part of it. Dialysis is also a satellite of the Ottawa Hospital. It was the first satellite in Ontario, and now Renfrew is the core dialysis provider for Renfrew County, and Renfrew has 2 satellites. One in Barry's Bay and one in Pembroke. So the model just continues to multiply. And on the dialysis side, which takes care of people who have chronic kidney disease, it's servicing over 100,000 people throughout Renfrew County. And we also have visitors who might come to our area as cottagers who need dialysis, because that happens 3 times a week basically for the rest of your life. So they'll come to Renfrew to get their treatments during the summer or in the winter when they're up. And we take care of all those people too. It's pretty cool.
And I don't think I understood the scope of kidney disease and how many users, 100,000, that's unbelievable, of people coming into our community to use this first-rate facility. And now it's getting better. and to serve more people. And we've heard stories now of people coming in from the city to use our facility. Usually, we have to go into the city for services, and now we're seeing kind of a reverse osmosis, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, from a different perspective, I like the magnetism of RVH. I'm hoping that RVH is going to bring people to their community and keep it here. Keep people here. How important, maybe from a business perspective or a community perspective, is RVH, and what can it do for our community?
It's huge. The impact that RVH has on our community, not only can you get first-class healthcare there, many people are employed there. Almost 400 people a day work at RVH, whether they're physicians, staff, visiting physicians, and that brings an awful lot of people to our community, as well as the funds. All of these people make a good living at the hospital, and they spend their money locally. So they buy their groceries in town, and people who are coming in for dialysis, typically a patient will come in and they'll be driven because often they can't take themselves home. So they'll be driven in by a family member, a friend, and then they go shopping while this person's having dialysis. So they'll go and they'll buy their groceries for the next week. Or when it's over, they'll go out and grab some lunch before they hit the road to go back home again. So again, there's a big economic impact just in the people that work and travel to the hospital. But around the hospital, as you know, there's lots of allied health facilities like the Manor and Grosse Park, Quail Creek. There's a physician. There are 2 physician clinics now, and there's a laboratory in there, and people come for those facilities as well. And so the Renfrew becomes a bit of a medical hub when we look at it that way.
And I've heard through the doctor recruitment phase the term health village. And now when you go out to RVH, you feel like you're on campus and you have all these facilities right there. It's an unbelievable opportunity for our town and our community to gravitate to that end. And it's just such a nice security blanket to be members of this community, knowing that we have first class support in our backyard.
It is. It's a big deal.
Now, you've been involved in RVH with the board, and now your wife's a part of the board.
Yep.
Can you talk about some of the personal connections that you've had to RVH and why you're kind of giving back now?
It's multifaceted. So as a volunteer, I was involved with the board for 11 years. And that for me was a tremendous training ground on what the hospital is all about and how RVH fits in our community and how it fits in Ontario within the healthcare system. I learned an awful lot about how it's funded, how it's sometimes not funded as well as it should. I've learned how the community steps up at times when the hospital needs funding. We've had a tremendous time with a very generous community raising funds over the probably the last 20 years, but even longer with our community. And now we're in campaign mode again, where we have this big expansion. We need to raise 10% of the expansion. So we're looking for $3.5 million over the next couple of years. And we're getting really positive feedback. Really glad that you're part of the leadership team, that you've stepped up and you're joining us to try and educate people on how important RVH is. So thank you very much for being on the team. We're delighted to have you. The energy you bring is awesome.
And I'm really excited. It's taking me out of my comfort zone, but that's when you learn. And sometimes we can live in these shelters of just doing the same thing over and over again, but it's allowing me to meet different people and to learn the healthcare system and to learn the business side of it. And it's invigorating. There's some anxiety, but it's invigorating. Yeah. Now, you also have 2 really personal stories that you like to tell about what RVH has done for you and your family. Would you be able to share those?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you for asking. The campaign is called I Choose RVH. So really, I choose RVH because of how well my family has been treated from a healthcare standpoint. And one prime example, fairly significant for me, was in 2010. I had a stroke, and I was rushed immediately to the hospital, where I was swarmed by physicians and nurses, and they quickly discovered what was going on with me, and they had me in an ambulance. Within 15 minutes, I was on my way to Ottawa, and the care that I received there was first class. It was fast. It was exactly what had to happen, because there's a special drug that you can get within the first couple hours of having a stroke that minimizes your risk of having further strokes. And if they hadn't moved as fast as they did, then I would have missed that window. But certainly I got within the window and had a fabulous recovery. And it was really the team at RVH that figured out what was going on, diagnosed me, got in touch with the hospital. While I'm going out the door on a stretcher, they were already talking to a neurologist, getting him set up so that he'd be ready when I walked in the door, rolled in the door down in Ottawa. So that's a pretty big one for me. It was a big day for me, but it was a bigger day for my family. And it was pretty important that RVH was there.
And there's a story about a cup of tea that just, to me, epitomizes what a small town hospital
it really is. And
is.
And it's funny that you say I have two stories, because our family's been through the Emerge Ward repeatedly, having three kids, 3 RCI grads. They all used it. And my mom and my dad have been through it. Marg was born there. And I certainly had my turn in Emerge. But my mother-in-law had a bad fall at her home one day, and she really hurt her head on the walk outside. And so we got her into an ambulance and we rushed her over there. And again, she was just swarmed, immediately got care, and was made as comfortable as she could be. And we're in Emerge, and it's an incredibly busy night. So I don't know if it was a Friday night, but that's what it felt like. So there were lots of people in there, but we were getting the care that we needed at the time. And once they got us stabilized, then they were busy, of course, working on everybody else. And there were people in there that were in more serious condition than my mother-in-law was. But the tea story came in that she was, at the time, she was 85. And if you can imagine all the hustle and bustle and trauma stuff that's going on in there. And she stops a nurse and asks for a cup of tea. And so I politely said, don't worry, I'll get you a cup of tea. And, let's just let this nurse get on with whatever she's doing. And so then we were waiting. The doctor had come in to check things out, and we were waiting for the next stage. And then the next thing that happens is a tray shows up with 3 cups of tea on it and 3 cookies in the middle of all of this hubbub and just amazing medical stuff going on. But I thought the last thing that they needed to worry about was a cup of tea, but I think they knew better. I think they knew that tea was the medicine that this lady needed. And honestly, it was. As soon as she had her tea, she relaxed, she was less agitated, things were going to be better. Cup of tea went a long way. So very, very cool.
And it's just that small touch that we hear over and over again. And one of the sentiments,
I don't think it would have happened in a major center.
No. And there was a sentiment from last night from one of our speakers who said, sometimes small towns just do it the right way. Yeah. And
I think that's
bang on. It's perfect for our hospital, and it's perfect for our community. I think it's perfect for our school too. Yeah. So we're in the middle of the I Choose RVH campaign. You are a co-chair with Lisa Vincent of Keeping Company. Yep. So this is an ongoing campaign to raise, maybe you're better off to to summarize the campaign and what we're looking for.
Well, the campaign from a dollar and cents standpoint, the expansion is going to be $35 million over the next 5 to 7 years through good fiscal management from previous boards and very good management in terms of cost recovery at the hospital. The hospital has some strong reserves and, in fact, is going to contribute $15 million to this $35 million project. And then the foundation has some strong reserves because of our generous community. And they're going to contribute $6.5 million. And I already mentioned that the government's throwing in 10. So when you do all that math, there's $3.5 million left to raise to make this campaign, or to make this expansion happen. So that's 10% of the total. And a $35 million expansion is the biggest expansion this hospital's ever had in its history, and it's well over 100 years old. And my estimate is it's going to be the biggest campaign, biggest expansion in the next 25 years. It's radically going to change how the hospital looks, how it operates, how patients are taken care of, how staff, it's going to be safer for staff, it's going to be safer for patients. It's pretty cool, pretty amazing stuff. And we'd invite anybody that's interested in learning more to contact you or I, and let's talk.
Yeah. And the best way to get me is podcast@noac.ca. That's podcast@noack.ca. Of course, a client of smilinghost.com. So you can search out I Choose RVH. You can search out noac.ca. You can search out smilinghost.com. We're easy to find. You can set up a meeting with us. We could probably even arrange a tour, some tea, some cookies, and just give us an opportunity to show our pride and to teach you why we've got involved and why we choose RVH. Kent, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Adam.
Hopefully this is just the first part of a speaker series where we can bring in other community members and our other workers or employees of RVH. This has been the Mr. Nowak's Classroom Virtually Irrelevant podcast. Thank you very much to Mitch Deslitz and Tyler Miller for providing the intro music. And of course, a big shout out to Bronson, our executive producer. Tune in again shortly for another episode.